Yeah, I designed the fender. Well, you can go back a little bit. First thing I did was I scanned it. I guess that's the important part. I also bought a 3D scanner.
Green flag.
Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by Deechworks Fuel Systems. Visit deechworks.com for all your fuel system needs. On this episode, we're going to talk about 3D printing, car parts, and how to get into it, or maybe a whole car, or parts of car, large parts of a car. Joining me, the BRZ driver that doesn't really have any Subaru parts left on it. He's the podcast hill climb expert and our North Carolina National Guard hero. Seth, welcome back to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me back.
So,
I'm surprised. I wasn't surprised you asked me to come on first time, but I was a little surprised you asked me to come back.
Why?
Usually it's a one shot and done.
Oh,
once people hear my voice.
No, here's the thing. Everyone's I haven't had a guest yet that I've been like, you know what? I'm not bringing that person back on. I've learned a lot of lessons, right? So one of my rules is I usually hate doing pre-podcast talks. So I had one of those today and I warned him. I said, this conversation is going to ruin our podcast because you're going to say some stuff. I'm going to know a little bit and then I'm not going to ask the right questions. You're going to think you said it already, yada, yada, yada. But as far as having somebody back on, look, man, I've seen what you're doing. You're crazy, but you're doing good stuff. So I want to learn about this stuff. So I never thought that somebody would go to the lengths that you have gone. And then literally minutes ago, I find out how little you knew not that long ago. But before we get down into the rabbit hole exactly, since the last time you were on, the car's evolved a lot. So, and you've been doing some stuff.
Yeah.
So you want to give us a little update on the car?
Yeah, last time we talked, it was 2023, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, work sent me over to Germany for 6 months, so I missed out on doing my winter upgrades. So came back for the 2024 hill climb season, and we kind of struggled all season with issues that we didn't really get the touch during the previous winter, and it was pretty just struggle the whole season. I think I got like one good run in by the end of the season, like the last event. We finally just decided to turn all the safeties off the Haltech and just send it, and it finally ran right. But ended up being a weird O2 issue with the like free air going back up into the exhaust and causing the O2 sensor to freak out. So yeah, as soon as that event was over in August, it was the West Virginia Hill Fest, which turned out to be a great event. It was the first time they had done it with that organization, and had some big names like Rob Dahm show up, and it was it's a cool event. So yeah, I got to get the car. I had a vision of what I wanted to do, just start tearing into stuff. Like this winter, we replaced the Nissan CD009 with a brand new one from Nissan because we having some fifth gear issues, and upgraded the supercharger a bit to bigger road tricks. And I really wanted to play around with some body work. This past year, I don't know, I guess it was like a Father's Day present that I I told my wife, like, don't give me anything for Father's Day. I want a 3D printer. And been kind of doing some research, and the Bamboo Labs 3D printer was kind of like everybody was saying, this thing's so easy. You just press the button, print. You don't have to worry about, you know, printing your own 3D printer as you go. I mean, it seems like in the past, 3D printers had always had this reputation for being more of a hobby itself than the actual printing. Like getting the thing to work right was you're constantly tinkering with it, and so it finally seemed like the market had reached a point where it was really they were making it very end user friendly. So those like kind of drove me to it's time to finally get into this.
So my kid brother has multiple 3D printers, and he's using 3D printers to repair 3D printers and to sell them, or using 3D printers to print parts to upgrade 3D printers. And I'm just like, oh, you guys are, you're really into the 3D printer thing. But yeah, like at work, we have Dremel ones, which are pretty plug and play. You transfer the file over, press print, and it just starts doing its thing.
Yeah.
But they're pretty small. The version we're using at work, so they're pretty small, and they're slow. I mean,
yeah,
but
yeah, they can
they
be.
work.
Yeah. I'd say what's a typical print time for something? I mean, it's usually going to be at least an hour or two for something small.
Yeah, pretty. We did some complex stuff, and they got 20-hour prints on them, and not always coming through perfect. Some of them usable, some of them perfect, some of them scrapped. I don't know. It's real trial and error stuff, from what I can tell. But let's talk about what people typically print for race cars.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good community and groups on Facebook, and I've seen all kinds of stuff being printed nowadays. Like I've seen full blown like ready to use on the car intake systems, intake manifolds for LSs. Um, individual throttle body, flossy stacks, air boxes, body panels. I made a mirror for mine. Obviously fenders. My big project, Miata hardtop, like I was talking about. I've seen people use 3D printers to make fabrication tools like angle gauges for cutting pie cuts. You can make like dies for a press to fabricate like little brackets, so you can put a piece of aluminum in the press and it'll form the aluminum into whatever shape you want. Organization stuff like organizing your toolbox. I mean, really, it's just up to the limits of your imagination and how far you can take the plastic. Seems like
basically. I mean, I've saw guys that were like, I didn't really like the long anchor kill switch plate, so I made my own. And I was like, what? You made your own plate? Well, they made it to like form fit like an old air ducts piece in their dash or something. Yeah. There was one guy I saw, he decided to run as little flex pipe and as straight as possible for his brake cooling. And so one piece was an aluminum that was getting close to the actual rotor and caliper, but along the frame rail, it was all 3D printed. He had it all mapped out. I don't want to know how long it took him, how many prototypes it took him to get it perfect. But it basically like used some mounting holes. It ran straight, conformed and all that stuff.
Well, that's the other beautiful thing. You can just, make a prototype and it doesn't fit. You make a little modification, reprint it out. Filament's cheap. I mean, I'm paying $11, $12 for a kilogram spool of filament. So, I mean, that'll print plenty of stuff.
Okay. I saw a bunch of people prototyping stuff before they were sending it to, what is it, Draw, Send, Cut, or whatever, the online
Like
place.
send, cut, send.
That one, yeah, Send, Cut,
Yeah.
Send. So they were printing out pieces that were literally supposed to, they were just wanted to make sure that their drawings were accurate.
Right. That stuff's
and then
expensive.
send it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were getting stuff. One guy was like, I'm prototyping a titanium such and such. And he was printing it for, that $11 plastic to make sure that when he sent it out to get built and spent that money, that it was coming through right,
Yeah. I did that with the exhaust hole cutout. It was kind of a weird shape. And I was kind of eyeballing the radius of the curves, and I wanted to make sure it was right. And, I'd print out like 3-layer thick little cutout of what I wanted, and after like 10 iterations, I was happy with it and sent it to Send Cut Send, and they cut it out of aluminum and put all the little rivet holes in there for me and everything.
Oh, that's because you got that fancy fender exit exhaust, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the case swap, we rerouted the exhaust to kind of do like it was going out of the hood, and we got rid of that, and now it's routing towards the front of the car, does a 180, goes back under itself, and then comes out in the fender right behind the front wheel. So that's going to cure our O2 sensor issues.
Oh, okay. That makes sense then. Because with the hood exit, you were having O2 sensor issues, essentially.
Yeah, but coming out of the hood, when we were actually moving physically, I guess the air would defeat the pressure of the exhaust and go inside of the exhaust. But it never did that on the dyno because we weren't moving. So
Right.
We took us many fuel pressure sensors and chasing down all kinds of issues we never figured out.
Okay. That's interesting. Because, my region, I think one of us every year writes a request to have hood exit exhaust for our road race cars just because we want to be, jerks about it and get it to pass one day so we can all do that. But
saves a lot of weight.
Well, it saves a lot of weight, but mostly we want to shoot fireballs out the hood while we go down the straightaway. So, but how we get.
It was fun while it lasted.
Right. So, okay. So let's talk about how long. So you talked about Father's Day. Father's Day 2024.
Yeah. That's when I got my 3D printer. And I really wanted to learn CAD. So I was just like, I guess now is my opportunity. I really have like this vision for what I want to do with the car. Like, I have these really wide tires. I've been using these kind of generic universal like over fender flare things, and just never quite happy with how they looked fine. It was just like every time you took it off, like the trim would get. I just didn't like it. So I was like trying to find some like commercially available fender flares that were nice and kind of looked the whole, the one piece, but replace the whole fender kind of thing. And I couldn't really find anything, or if I did, it was too expensive. So I was like, I got this 3D printer, like, why can't I just, print, like come up with a design, print it, and, and I'll just make a mold and, get some carbon fiber. I always wanted to learn how to do composites and make it, make the mold out of 3D print, like 3D print the plug for the mold, make the mold, and then make the carbon fiber part. That was the original plan. So I got, after a while with the 3D printer, doing the stuff you do when you first get a 3D printer, like printing little trinkets and like articulating dragons and crap like that.
Right.
Finally started getting into actually designing some stuff for the car. Um, so yeah, but like from June, I started working on the fenders probably September.
Okay.
So, within like 5 months or so, 4 or 5 months, I was from knowing nothing to designing a part. I was just step one, like figure out how to do this part. Okay, it looks kind of like what I want now. What do I need to figure out next? And just going on Facebook or online and asking people questions and one step at a time.
So, okay, so you have to learn CAD, right? Or some sort of CAD software. What's that run you? Did you use a free one or
Yeah, I'm using Fusion 360, which is the free version. Um, the only main difference is that you can only save 10 projects at a time.
okay.
There's some other little stuff, but like
So you cut your fender
95%
up
of
into
it's
10 pieces, is what you're saying?
yeah. I designed the fender. Well, you go back a little bit.
Okay.
First thing I did was I scanned it. I guess that's the important part. I also bought a 3D scanner.
Okay. That's fair. All right.
Um,
I,
I yeah.
okay, how much was the 3D scanner? Does your wife love you that much for Father's Day also?
That was a separate purchase.
Okay.
I got an Einstar. Found it on sale for like $700 or so.
Okay. Is that a
Um,
LiDAR scanner or how does that work? Or is it a photo scanner setup? Do you know?
it does both.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I have to double check that. I'm not super up on the 3D scanning technology, but I really needed a reference for how big everything was. That was like my first kind of hurdle was like, I've done in the past where I'll just take a picture of something and upload that picture as a canvas into Fusion 360 and kind of, draw, sketch around the picture. I'll put like a ruler or something in the frame in the picture so it's also in the picture so I have a reference for how long things are.
Mm-hmm.
So then you scale the picture to what you're creating. So that was kind of like the first thing I needed to figure out was how I know what I want to do. How big do I need to make it? So I just broke down and like went the easy route and bought the semi-professional scanner, which I know some people can do it with. There's phone apps that you can 3D scan
Yeah.
stuff, and it takes like hundreds of pictures, and then it assembles them all together. Which I tried to do that, and I didn't. It was like such pain. I did just kind of gave up on that.
Yeah, I heard you have to like get the settings right and everything. But okay, so before you tackle the huge project that where you were 3D scanning your car and doing and getting all that, the Facebook groups and there's websites, right, where you can get canned files. So you don't have to reinvent all the wheels if you're doing something like a switch panel or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, tons. Like especially for popular chassis like the Miata. There's like a whole Facebook group dedicated to just 3D printing stuff for the Miata. uh, there's all kinds of like vents you can get for Miata fenders or something, or
The hood vent
uh,
setup and stuff.
yeah. Little replacement, what they call the tombstone radio bezel that goes in the Miatas. You can 3D print those. I mean, just all kinds of like little interior pieces like that. Um, but yeah, you can just go and download those. I mean, people have created them, and you might have to pay like a few bucks sometimes, but a lot of times it's open source or free.
So did you like this Miata top you were talking about, did you get that on one of those websites, or did you reinvent the wheel and try to do it from scratch?
No, it's actually a guy, I think he's in Italy, that's had a Kickstarter that he's been developing a hardtop for Miata, and so I backed him on Kickstarter in exchange for the print file for a hardtop. So, we haven't started that project, but I got the file, or will get the file for that.
Okay.
Start doing that. And from what I heard, Miata or Mazda stopped making the factory OEM hardtops this year,
Right.
so they're gonna get even more expensive.
They were already worth more than most of the Miata cars, so.
Right. If you can find one.
Right. That's becoming the big problem, right? So, okay, so we've learned AutoCAD. You've troubleshot how to download files. You've learned how to maybe tweak or manipulate files, because you can use some of the free stuff, right? And be like, well, I want this 2 inches long and not 1 inch long. And you can sort of mess around and learn CAD, right?
Yeah, and that's just the way I went. A lot of people use other types of software like Blender, which isn't a CAD software. It's more of a mesh creation tool, like the difference between a hard body and a mesh body in the 3D like modeling world, or kind of different ways of going about it. So from what I understand, like CAD, like Fusion's a little bit more difficult with mesh stuff. And when you 3D scan something, it creates it as a mesh because it has tons of, little polygons that has to compute, and the mesh files are easier to handle with the CPUs. So you have to convert it into hard body if you want to it's just two different ways of doing it. So there's plenty of software. I mean, there's just tons of software. I was talking to somebody else today that was using something I'd never even heard of, and he was making solid body models of cars from scans to use in CFD simulations.
I don't think it was you. I think you commented on it, but there's somebody they made their own wing in sections and was gluing it together on the Professional Awesome side. Was it you that commented?
I think I've seen that.
I think I only saw it come through my feed because somebody I knew commented on it. But he had an interesting structure inside the wing, so it added rigidity with as little weight as possible, right? Are you learning that by like downloading stuff already and then looking at why they use it, or how are you learning when you're printing your own piece after you scanned it? Like, how do you know how to add sections to support the piece while it's printing and stuff like that?
Well, I guess, when you're printing it, the slicing software that comes with the 3D printers that I use, it automatically adds all that.
Okay.
So you don't have to do that. You can manually do that, but it's all automated.
Oh, it's all automated
in the software. So you can tell if a piece has like a more than a 35-degree angle, then add a support.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or something like that.
Okay.
But as far as that wing, I get, what was he doing? Like using aluminum rods through the length of it to kind of
he was
hold
gonna
it all together or something?
He was gonna use like all thread through the middle to bind it all.
And then like a bolt or a nut on each side.
Yeah, and hold it all together. And they were sort of like one side had a lip and the other side fit in it, and it had an edge, and it all slipped together, so it was smooth. And then he was going to sand it and epoxy it and do all sorts of stuff, but he was going to bind it so it was all perfectly straight with the rod first. So then he
Right.
could epoxy it, resand everything, and then he could pull the rod out. I'm pretty sure that's what he was going to do. I didn't read the whole thing because I was like, oh, I just buy those. I don't make those. So,
I mean, if you want something really specific, yeah, I guess that's, a good place to start.
yeah, but there's so many off the shelf items for things like that. I know you don't have fenders, right? Or not fenders you wanted, not at a good price. Yours is kind of specific because you're kind of trying to put those big old wheels under that BRZ, right? And sort of have like a good looking fender to cover it. Plus, you're venting your fenders from what I saw. So you're
Right.
trying to incorporate some aero into it, try to relieve some of the stress on the fender from the air coming in. There's a lot going on, so you might as well do that yourself instead of, I don't know, trying to rely on somebody else. But a
Yeah.
wing, I can buy one of those. Maybe I need to make my own uprights, but the hard work is
there's
already done.
definitely some use cases that make sense for a 3D printer and some that I guess don't.
Yeah.
Like anything structural or, could have a safety type of margin.
Yeah, it's accessory work, right? And if it is structural, you're usually using it, in my opinion, you're using it to test, right? So you're going to test the fitment of your file, right? Print it out, test the fitment, and then get it built out of something legitimate, steel, aluminum, whatever you're using it for. But
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people use a 3D printing, like I was saying earlier, for the molds for fiberglass or carbon fiber stuff.
are you using your fenders as molds, or are you going to actually just use your fenders the way they are?
Well, once I printed the first prototype set, I kind of fit it up, and I mean, I was holding it, and I was like, "What does this thing even weigh?" It was like probably 6 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
just from the piece and the metal fender together. And I was like, "What is even the point in making this out of carbon fiber?" I mean, it just felt like a kind of a diminishing returns. What I would get out of that is, not going to be worth the time and effort and money to get a carbon fiber part out of. I mean, it took, 30 hours to print this, and I don't know if I blew one up, well, I just go print another one. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, what, 6 pounds? I mean, what you're going to get a fender out down to a pound or two with carbon fiber? It just, I don't know, it just didn't seem like it was worth it once I had the thing in my hand.
Yeah, and I get it, but you don't get the hot boy parts because you don't have carbon. You could just lay it over top and glue it on there, trim it out. It'll hold up a lot more, but
Well,
bind it all
I kind
together.
of did that.
Okay.
I used carbon fiber on the inside
Okay.
of the fender to do exactly that. I just did a wet lay on the inside with a single like layer of, I can't remember what it was, like 12K carbon fiber. So just between the epoxy and the carbon fiber sheet, just holding everything on the inside secure. If a rock gets kicked up, it's going to hit that layer before it damages the plastic on the inside. So that was kind of a process that I came up with.
Okay. I mean, at least it's more structural now. I was going to tell you need to watch all of AJ Hartman's carbon videos, but
I have watched a lot of
I don't have the patience for carbon work. I'm always trying to multitask, like in the garage. I don't know why. It's my ADD. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. And so what happened when I tried to lay up some carbon on a piece that I was working on was I actually was like, I have to just do this. And then I got impatient. I was like, why isn't this working? Why is there not enough epoxy on here? And I just started laying the snot out of all of it. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is not me. This is not my bag. But
Yeah, the learning curve is just, it seems like it's an expensive learning curve.
so
If you're
do you
gonna
think
mess
it's
it up.
is it more expensive than the 3D printer learning curve? Or is it an easier curve with the 3D printer? And then, I don't know, comparing the two. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the 3D printing is a lot more accessible to the average person than trying to get it into composites. I mean,
Especially if you're
um,
vacuuming.
yeah, you need the tools, you need the consumables. I mean, it seems like with the composite stuff, it's very specific, depending on your use case, what type of material you need. It takes a lot of space. You need specialty tools like vacuum pump with, you got to heat the thing up and cure it, and it's messy. I don't know. I've tried several times to get into it. I've yet to be able to have a successful go at it.
Yeah. But it looks like you got pretty decent with this 3D printing stuff. So let's talk tools, because you said you need specialty tools for carbon, and I get it. You need like dedicated wet scissors and dedicated dry scissors. You need a big layout area if you're working with a larger piece. There's a lot of space requirements. But so let's talk about the material first. What did you print your fenders out of?
I used PETG.
Okay.
It's I don't know, it's kind of the go-to material, I'd say, for automotive type applications.
Okay.
Um, it's stronger and holds up to UV better than PLA. It has a higher heat tolerance than PLA. Um, it's it's not quite as strong as something like ABS, ASA,
Hmm.
which that's what I used to print my mirror out of, because just thought it would need more strength than that. Or the PTG is cheaper. It's a good price point. It's easy to print with. I think it usually starts to get soft around 50 to 60 Celsius, which is like around 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, so depending on where you use it, as long as it's not sitting above your exhaust, it's probably going to hold up to heat. There are carbon fiber infused filaments. I've not
Hmm.
used any of those before, but they're especially strong from my understanding. It's like if you need something that's really really strong and hold up to something, you go with the carbon fiber filaments.
But they
But
also need
it's really
special
expensive.
nozzles and stuff.
Yeah, you need a hardened steel nozzle, which is like a accessory you have to buy for the bamboo. At least the one I got, it didn't come with the hardened steel one.
Yeah.
Some other interesting filaments are like the TPU, kind of the rubbery filaments. People make bushings out of those.
Yeah. I think this RC crawler has that as the foams on the inside of the tire for dialing in
Oh,
tire
really?
pressure. Yeah, they use them.
So you could like change out the.
Yeah, of the inside. It's nuts. They do
Yeah,
weird stuff, man. So,
I've seen people print basketballs like hexagon geometry basketballs out of TPU that actually bounce.
and like does it have the air nozzle printed in it so you can add air?
No, it's completely hollow.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's wild.
You can make like O-rings or gaskets with the TPU stuff too.
That could be useful because all my gaskets, the K series gaskets, are like, oh, it'll be there in a day. Try a week. Like, but
Yeah, that would be interesting to come up with some gaskets,
I don't know if I'd trust it,
test them
but
out. Yeah,
not
yeah, it'd
not
be
on the
an
race
interesting
motor.
test.
Okay. So you picked, what is it, a bamboo model?
Bamboo Labs is
Bamboo.
the company.
Okay. And I'm
Yeah,
assuming you of all people would do pretty extensive research to pick their model, right?
I got the P1S,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like their midship model. It's fully enclosed. It doesn't have the fancy computer that goes with the high end version. It just seemed kind of like the price point. But as far as printing, it's just as capable as their most expensive one, same size print bed. It's compatible with they call the AMS, which allows you to print multiple colors at one time in one print. It automatically like changes the colors for you.
Uh,
It's been pretty reliable.
is it self-leveling and stuff, or
Yeah, it self levels the bed every print that it'll hit the nozzle on the bed on the Z axis and make sure everything's level and cancel a print if like you put the plate on crooked or something like that.
okay, okay. I mean, it's helpful to be dummy proof, right? I remember my roommate probably, oh boy, I'm going to date myself, 20 years ago, bought
Yeah,
a 3D printer. And the other roommate, in the middle of a print, decided he was going to turn the heat down because the heating bill was too high, and it ruined his print. Because back then, everything was, tolerances were like self-done. You leveled everything, you did
yeah.
everything, and they were super sensitive to
It's
swings
probably
in
open
temperature.
air.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why you
Open
need the
air.
enclosure.
Yep. So we've come a long way, and
Yeah,
the
that's
price
what I'm
point's
saying.
really cheap now in comparison. So
Yeah, I think I paid around $750 for mine,
right.
which is for what I've gotten out of it. I mean, I feel like it's already paid for itself.
Okay, so you've printed a fender in pieces. For reference, how big is the base plate so people understand like how big or how small the printer you got is?
It's 250 millimeter cubed, so
Okay.
it's about 10 inches. Um, so yeah, it's not huge. There's
Right.
definitely bigger printers out there with bigger beds. And I'd say that's probably been my biggest limitation or pain point with it is just the size. If I could print bigger stuff, it would, be less of a hassle. Obviously, you know, I'll print like 3 pieces or 4 pieces at a time, as much as I can fit on the plate.
Mm-hmm.
I have 1 kilogram spools, so the software will tell me like this. If you put all these pieces on the plate, it'll take 900 or zero point 0.9 kilograms of filament to print this. So you got to make sure it's less than, or it's less. You have enough filament to print it, basically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so that's some good best practices stuff, right? So and some good tips, right? So if you're looking for one, a bigger bed might be. I've seen some bigger beds that don't accept much more filament without you printing some spool adapter stuff, right? So there's folks
Yeah.
who like, it's weird, like the bed gets bigger, but the spool capacity doesn't get larger until you print an adapter to make it, right? And it may come with your printer. But you have to be careful with that. But a print bed size is pretty important. You have to know bigger is probably better. But then you also, when they
It
get
depends on
bigger,
what you're doing with it. But yeah,
right.
for this kind of stuff,
Would you give up multicolor printing to have, excuse me, to have a bigger bed, but at the same price point?
I didn't get the multicolor setup, so I
Okay.
can only do one color at a time now. And I mean, the multicolor stuff is cool and all, but it just seems, I mean, it just doesn't matter that much to me in terms of functionality.
Right. It's for those people who want to print like Pokemon and stuff. I see. I don't
Yeah.
know. I see it at like thrift stores or yard sales or
Yeah.
whatever, like craft shows and stuff. I'm like, they just bought a 3D printer. They probably got all this stuff, without actually creating anything. They just either bought the file or got it for free and started printing it and put a price tag on it. But anyway, that's what that stuff is for, really. But
Yeah. I mean, there's some cool stuff you can do with it, but yeah, you can paint it afterwards if you want.
right. What tools are you using to clean up your prints? And at least for your fender, are you sanding it perfectly smooth, or how are you working on that too?
Yeah, I use it prints out fairly smooth. It has like these little lines from where the nozzle extruded the filament out, obviously. So I use a just a orbital sander, and I'll go over it. Start out with 80 grit and typical. Work my way up to like 600, and then I'll paint it with the self-etching primer, and then go back and wet sand it, which is, obviously don't have to do all this, but I wanted it to look nice. So we ended up wrapping it, and I wanted, be smooth as possible.
Right.
The way I did my fender was I was concerned. One thing that concerned me was like the mounting points, like where would the fender actually attach to the body of the car. And so what I ended up doing was just cutting out the metal steel original fender to the point where nothing was left but the mounting points and the surface to where I could mold my fender to it. So I used expanding foam to as kind of like an adhesive to fill the gaps between the steel fender and the plastic fender, and then used aluminum tape to make sure everything on the top was flat and not allow the foam to kind of come out over the top, and peel the aluminum tape off, and then just use your standard like lightweight body filler to fill in the gaps and smooth that all out and mold it in. So I've learned body work too, in addition.
Yeah, just what everybody wants to hear, right? So do you use like the scraper to pop it off your plate and all that jazz? Like what instruments are you using?
I mean, I really don't have. Yeah, you just kind of bend the plate a little bit, and
Pops
the
off.
yeah, typically pops off. Sometimes the PTG will, if you let it cool down too much, it'll kind of get really, really attached to the plate,
Yeah.
and that can be a pain. But you just have to work it a little bit.
Okay.
Tools. I mean, yeah, there's not much tools I need to do the actual printing side of it.
Okay. So, all right. Are there any? So you regret maybe the 250 millimeters by 250 millimeter base plate. Is there anything else that you think, in the grand scheme of things, when you get your second one, because it's like you got 3D printer people always have more than one. What's your next one?
You just print the second one.
So what upgrades would you look for in the next one?
Like I said, it's not really too much except for the bed. I've heard rumors that Bamboo is going to come out with the 400 plate printer, but I'm sure it's going to start getting expensive.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe just having another one would help with, the speed of things.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely would. I think that's why they always have more, because they're like, okay, this one's dedicated to this project or this section of the project, and this one's dedicated to that section of the project.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you another blessing with the 3D printers. Everyone in my family got 3D printed presents for Christmas.
Yes, my brother got us all. He printed us all 3D printed stuff for Christmas too.
My mom's into pottery, so she wanted some specialty tool. I just, drew it up in Fusion and printed it out for her, and she was over the moon happy about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and now you save that file, and if she never needs another one, you can just whip it up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. So, is there anything else we need to cover with 3D printing, you think?
Now that you asked me, I feel like I had a million things. Yeah, one thing I'm at the point with now that I've gotten the fenders on, and I guess long term I haven't tested durability. That's kind of like the last big thing.
Right.
How is it going to hold up? If it ends up, after one event just being torn all to pieces, am I going to have to go back to the drawing board, or that's kind of where I'm at with it now.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I feel like there's a stigma around it. Like you mentioned 3D printers, the car people, and they're like, "This is never going to work. You're crazy."
I mean, you do need to test it, right? But that's everything. Okay. I built an aluminum, lack of a better term, rack for my oil cooler and trans cooler setup, and it's version 1. I already know this.
Yeah.
If this one is good enough, everything, I'm going to pull it out, and then I'm going to have it all welded up, right? If it's not, there's going to be design changes, okay? You may find that you need a little bit thicker. Maybe you just want another layer of carbon to help, because it won't twist if you cross hatch it, right? So if you lay it 2 different directions, it'll take the twist out of it. Maybe you have that. I don't know. You're going to need some cameras on the outside of your car just to make sure, but
yeah.
You don't know how it and you know what? It could be perfect. It could do exactly what it needs to do. Right? But that's the flexibility you have now, is you can go, okay, I got it all. It fits. I have all the files. Okay. If I have a failure, assess it, and then you can redo it. It's infinitely easier, so it's really a benefit. Time. Yeah. There's more time. And you know what? There's lots of, it prints while you sleep, prints while you're at work.
Yeah. Yeah, just hope you don't press print, go to bed, and wake up and then you have a pile of strings in the
Every 3D printer has a story of that, so yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some hilarious failures.
It happens, right? but you can clean it up, clean up your machine, clean out your nozzles, put a fresh spool in or whatever, and then try again. I think my brother did 6 3D printed presents, and he designed everything and printed everything in 3 days. So,
Yeah.
and they weren't that hard, but they weren't easy either, So it was like,
and you get a little bit better every time.
Right. Yeah. He told us, he was like, so yours is the first one, and that's why this doesn't work, right? And then he was like, but I'll get you a new one. It just hasn't printed yet, right? Because literally Christmas morning, he had presents still coming off the printer. So, because he was on several iterations, So,
yeah.
But it helps you. How outside of making a fender, how are some ways you think it helps you as a driver?
I guess, as a driver,
Not really but I mean, you work on your own car, you drive your car, like you're the epitome of a grassroots guy, right? We get dirty on the weekends that we don't have races, and we go racing on the race weekends, So
I'll be the first to admit, I feel like the engineering, fabrication, tinkering is like just as much fun, if not more fun, than actually driving it for me. I mean, I get 4 or 5 events a year, so I have a lot of time with the car in the garage.
yeah, and 24 hours a day where your brain is like, what can I do to this car and make it a little better?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
I go through that too.
A lot of times people will, mess with me, like, oh man, maybe you'd be fast if you didn't rebuild the car every year, but it's kind of the downside of that.
Yeah, but your car inside and out, so if something ever happens, it doesn't take that long to fix it usually. So
yeah, be like, oh yeah, we just need 3 M6 50mm bolts right there.
Yeah, and they're like, huh? So, all right, Seth. So we're gonna go into the last segment. Well, the only segment for this podcast. And I want to know what your favorite racer excuse is.
Favorite? Give me an example.
I believe like Adam Jabay said he hears I would have been faster, but those drifters, put too many tire marbles out on the track and I couldn't get my best time. Or, oh, if it wasn't just for that slow traffic I ran into, I would have been the top qualifier.
For me, it was last year. It was, and I would have broken into the sub 100-second run at the last event if Rob Dahm hadn't dumped his oil on the track right in front of me and closed the whole track down.
That works. That works, especially when you name them by name. I think that's a legitimate excuse. That's not even like a messy racer excuse, I think that's real. So.
That was last run of the day. I was about to break 100 seconds. And he was right in front of me and dumps all the oil on the track. They just shut it down.
And I'm sure he had like, a 12 quart capacity, like a diesel truck or something. So
yeah, the whole dry sump tank or something.
All right, my man. Seth, it's been great talking to you. Where can people find you and your 3D printed posts?
Yeah, I guess I post just about daily on my Instagram on it's at Mount_Telly_Lion.
Okay.
It's probably the best place to find me.
Awesome, my man. Awesome. It's been a pleasure. I know you gave up almost an hour of your car time to come help us learn about 3D printing and how it can help us and how to get into it and what you can do with it. So I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.